Good old Pappy Nubs. He was a man of many saws. Some of them I got hanging on my wall, others are in boxes in the crawl space, but one of my favorites is right here in his tool chest. This is maybe one of the earliest spear back saws ever made, perhaps from the late 1700s. Pappy carried this saw with him during the War of 1812, and it's said that while cannonballs were bouncing off old Ironsides, Pappy took this saw in his teeth and swam just below the surface of the water to all the ships, cutting holes in their hulls and sinking the entire British Armada. I guess that's why the plate's rusty. Of course, this is a back saw, which means it has a metal stiffener along the back, which makes it possible to use a very thin blade and produce crisp, accurate cuts. Some might call this one a dovetail saw, others would say it's a carcass saw. In fact, there are several classifications of back saws, and it's not always clear where a particular one fits in. So let me give you a quick rundown. As a joiner, which is what old-timey furniture makers were called, you had at least 4 classes of back saws at your disposal, and selecting the right saw for the right joint, well, sometimes that was just a matter of personal preference. The smallest of these is the Dovetail Saw. These are usually between 6 and 10 inches from toe to heel. They have fine teeth, 15 or more per inch, and they're filed for a rip cut. They have a very thin plate that's only as wide as it has to be for dovetail cutting because they can easily kink. That and the fact that hand-cut dovetails are considered to be fine woodworking joints have made these saws sort of a status symbol among woodworkers, even old-timey guys. Next comes the Carcass Saw, which was used to cut up the cow for the old-timey woodworker's lunch. But its name actually comes from the fact that this saw was used on the structural pieces of the furniture, the skeleton, so to speak. I don't know, it's a pretty dumb name. But it's my favorite of the back saws. They're usually 12 to 14 inches long with relatively fine teeth. Mine are 12 points per inch, others like them about 14 points. The Carcass Saw is most commonly filed for a cross cut, but I keep 2 of them, one for cross cuts and one for rip cuts, because I find this saw to be just the perfect size for cutting small tenons and even dovetails in thicker material. The next size up is the Sash Saw. These are the conundrums of the handsaw world. If you go ask a woodworker today in one of the forums what a sash saw is, you may as well be walking into a bar and yelling "Harley suck." A fight is going to commence. Old-timey days saw the sash saw as the workhorse of the workshop. A lot of woodworkers used it for everything. They're kind of a hybrid between a Carcass Saw and a Tenon Saw. They're 14 to 18 inches long with about 11 to 14 points per inch. But the teeth are filed in a very specific way so that it can do both rip cuts and cross cuts. They've kind of fallen out of favor nowadays, but some woodworkers actually prefer the sash saw for tenon cutting rather than the larger Tenon Saw. Of course, that brings us to the largest of the 4 back saws in the old-timey woodworker's toolkit, the Tenon Saw. And they have one purpose: to cut fine, intricate dovetails. That doesn't sound right, does it? Actually, the Tenon Saw is the anti-dovetail saw. It's big, heavy, and long, 16 to 20 inches, with coarse 10 points per inch filed in a rip cut. These are made for cutting the cheeks of tenons, so they have an extra wide plate. Unless I'm cutting some really heavy-duty tenons, I find these a little unwieldy. But for many woodworkers, this is their bread and butter. We couldn't do what we do without folks like the Bushy family over at Clearview Cyclones. Not only do they make the best dust collection cyclones on the market, but they're woodworkers supporting woodworkers. They're the sponsor of this video, and I really hope you'll thank them by visiting their website and using our discount code below this video. Wait, don't go yet. If you're new here, please subscribe and remember to ring the bell. I would really appreciate that. Give us a thumbs up, or better yet, leave us a comment. I always read them. And be sure to check out the latest issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. It's always packed with tips, tricks, and tutorials designed to make you a better woodworker.